The night air was cold enough to sting, carrying with it the faint smell of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. The streets of the small town were nearly empty when Daniel pulled his red pickup truck into the lot outside the diner. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed as he and his two closest friends, Megan and Chris, lingered over greasy fries and milkshakes. It was a familiar place where they had spent countless evenings, yet something about that night felt slightly different, as if the town itself was holding its breath. They left just before midnight, stepping out into the quiet, their laughter echoing briefly against the brick walls before fading into the silence. Witnesses who saw them recalled nothing out of the ordinary, though a few remembered Daniel glancing around nervously, as if expecting someone to appear. Megan tossed her jacket into the back seat, Chris slammed the passenger door shut, and then the truck rumbled to life. The taillights glowed faintly red as the vehicle rolled out of the lot and onto the near-deserted highway. A few drivers later reported seeing the truck speeding slightly, Daniel's hands gripping the wheel tightly, his eyes flickering toward the rearview mirror. The laughter that had followed them out of the diner seemed to vanish once they were on the open road. By morning, when none of them returned home, concern turned quickly into panic. Daniel's parents assumed he had stayed over at a friend's house, but Megan's family reported her missing within hours, knowing it was unlike her to disappear without a word. Chris's younger brother said he waited all night for him to come back, only to find his bed still perfectly made. Calls to their phones went unanswered. That single night, which began with nothing more than a late dinner among friends, marked the last time anyone saw them alive. The search began at dawn, with officers combing the roads and nearby woods for any trace of the missing truck. For 2 long days, there was nothing, no tire marks, no signs of struggle, no discarded belongings. It was as if the 3 friends had simply vanished into the night. Then, on the 3rd morning, a deputy spotted something deep in the forest, far from the highway they were believed to have taken. Half hidden beneath low branches and damp leaves sat Daniel's red pickup, its paint dulled by mud, its front bumper scraped as though it had forced its way through the trees. The vehicle looked out of place, abandoned in silence, as if someone had carefully hidden it away. Inside the truck, the scene was unnerving. The doors were unlocked, and the keys still dangled from the ignition. Chris's backpack lay on the floorboard, packed neatly with his books and wallet untouched. Megan's jacket was crumpled across the back seat, dusted with dirt, and the passenger side seat bore a long streak of mud that seemed smeared by force. Investigators noticed how the glove compartment had been left wide open, though nothing appeared to be missing. The radio was switched off, and the headlights had drained the battery, leaving the truck lifeless in the woods. What captured the attention of the search teams most were the footprints scattered in the soft ground nearby. 3 sets clearly led away from the truck, each distinct in size and direction, but only 2 of them returned. The trail stopped abruptly, as if the missing prints had been swallowed by the forest itself. No signs of a struggle were immediately visible, yet the arrangement felt unnatural. Officers marked the site as a turning point in the case, realizing that the disappearance was not an accident, but something far more sinister. Investigators turned their attention to Daniel, the driver and the one believed to have chosen the route that night. At first glance, he seemed like an ordinary young man with no reason to run or vanish. Teachers described him as dependable, his friends called him steady, and his family swore he had no enemies. But as detectives pulled at the threads of his life, small details began to surface, pieces that hinted at a hidden story. Months before the disappearance, Daniel had grown noticeably withdrawn. He no longer spent long afternoons at the football field or late nights joking with friends. Instead, he often drove alone to the edge of town, where a man no one really knew had recently rented a rundown cabin. Locals recalled the stranger as quiet, almost secretive. He came and went at odd hours, spoke to no one, and paid his rent in cash. Daniel was seen with him more than once, leaning against his truck late at night, talking in hushed tones that ended abruptly if anyone passed by. When questioned, Daniel's family admitted they knew nothing about this new relationship. Phone records revealed that in the week before the friends disappeared, Daniel received several late-night calls from an unlisted number. Each call lasted only a few minutes, but they grew more frequent, especially in the final 2 days. Detectives began to wonder whether Daniel had been pressured into something he couldn't escape from. His nervous glances at the diner and his tight grip on the steering wheel suddenly carried new weight. Had he been expecting someone to follow them that night? Or worse, had he been leading his friends toward a meeting he couldn't avoid? The deeper they looked into Daniel's recent choices, the more troubling the mystery became. Nearly 3 weeks after the friends vanished, a hunter moving quietly through the dense forest stumbled upon something unusual. Half hidden beneath a thick curtain of vines stood a weathered shack, its roof sagging and its windows blackened by grime. From the outside, it looked abandoned, yet faint boot prints in the soil suggested someone had been there recently. When investigators arrived, they pried open the swollen wooden door and stepped into a room that froze them in place. Dust coated the shelves, but scattered across the floor were fresh signs of human activity. Near the center of the shack lay several scraps of fabric, torn and dirt-stained. One piece matched the bright sweater Megan had been wearing the night she disappeared. Nearby, dried streaks of blood marked the floorboards, smeared in lines as though something, or someone, had been dragged. Forensic teams carefully documented every inch, photographing what looked like a deliberate attempt to conceal evidence. In the corner of the shack sat a battered notebook, its pages filled with dark sketches of bound figures and scrawled, fragmented words that hinted at obsession or ritual. Fingerprints were lifted from the walls and objects, but none belonged to Daniel, Megan, or Chris. Even more unsettling, shoe prints inside the shack matched none of the missing friends either. Whoever had been there seemed to have moved quickly, leaving behind traces but no clear trail. Outside, the forest grew quiet, almost as if swallowing the shack back into its shadows. The discovery reignited the town's fear. For the first time, it appeared the disappearance wasn't a simple accident or runaway situation but something calculated, hidden, and cruel. Investigators could not shake the feeling that someone had been watching the friends long before that night, waiting for the moment to strike. Years slipped by, but the mystery of the three missing friends refused to fade. Their families held on to hope, keeping porch lights burning each night in case someone returned. Police files thickened with reports, sightings, and tips, yet none led to answers. Then, in 2005, 8 years after the disappearance, a curious discovery reignited the case. At a small thrift shop in a city more than 200 miles away, a worker sorting through donated boxes found a worn leather wallet. Inside, tucked between faded receipts, was Megan's driver's license. The photo was unmistakable, though the plastic was scratched and aged. How the item traveled such a distance remained unknown, and no one could identify who had dropped off the donation. The license sparked a new wave of theories. Some believed Megan had been alive long after that night, moving from place to place under someone's control. Others suggested the license had been kept as a trophy, discarded only when its owner no longer cared. Investigators traced every lead from the thrift store but ran into dead ends at every turn. There were no fingerprints, no surveillance footage, and no names attached to the donation. The family's grief grew heavier as the years dragged on. Daniel's parents struggled with whispers that their son had led his friends into danger. Megan's mother clung to the hope that her daughter had survived somewhere. Chris's brother never forgave himself for waiting at home, convinced he should have gone looking that night. Despite renewed attention, the trail went cold once again. To this day, no bodies have been recovered, no arrests have been made, and no confession has surfaced. What happened that autumn night remains one of the darkest mysteries in the town's history, a night when three friends drove away and never came back.